Day 3 of CinemaCon 2026 has just been completed. And today we're going to be looking about all the stuff from Universal side of things, all the movies and stuff. Like there wasn't a lot, but they did talk about it in depth. Just like the last 2 days, I've been doing this thing like by announcing all the stuff in movies, like the footage that was described, like for people that couldn't make it to CinemaCon, and like from all the people that were able to go, we were able to learn from that. And I hope everyone's doing well. And I would like to thank Discussing Films because this is where a lot of this information I found from is from CinemaCon. And hopefully you enjoy as we get started for Universal. So to start it off, they announced a Snoop Dogg biopic that is happening, and it's produced by Snoop Dogg and directed by Craig Brewer, and it's going to be rated R, and it's going to be starring Jonathan Davis, who maybe a lot of you guys might know him from Outer Banks as Snoop. And also, it is releasing next year in 2027, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I think this is kind of cool. Like we're getting a Snoop Dogg biopic and he's producing it. I feel like, this might be a pretty good one. I'm actually pretty excited for this biopic. Some footage was also shown for the other Mummy movie, which is coming out later this year in October. And this is what they said about the trailer and what it was shown. So it starts off with a mother, Jessica Chastain, sorry if I mispronounce it, excitedly greeting her daughter, but something seems off. She keeps recommending strange items to make for breakfast, then asks her daughter if she remembers where she came from. The daughter says her tummy, and the mother corrects her, saying she was in his heart, asking if she wants to go back to her heart. Cut to the father coming into the smell of burning breakfast, telling the daughter she can't cook alone, only to scream when the tortured mother crawls out from under the dinner table. And they also talked about this too, like the daughter asks if she's her real mommy, and Chastain says, of course she is, but the fact that the audience doesn't know is the real hook of the movie. And then the new Sense of Sensibility, which is known for a fairly faithful adaptation of Jane Austen's novel. They did show the first trailer there to the people at CinemaCon, and this is what the description says. A group of young women led by Daisy Edgar Jones experiences the trials of tribulations of choosing between love and a more logical, serious description. The dialogue feels ripped right out of the novel, whereas the naturalistic cinematography and the rolling green hills and estates therein are exactly what many would think of Jane Austen's work. Sense and Sensibility look like no frill adaptation that maintains what has made the novel a classic without reinventing too much, which might be the right take. We'll see how this goes, and let me know about if you think, the novel did a good job adapting this movie when it comes out, or you think it will. Next, we got an upcoming movie called Focker In-Law, which is directed by John Hamburg, and it is actually released a trailer, but it's now released online. So if you guys want to go check it out, you can now check it out online because the trailer is out now. And then Universal also announced like a new movie, and it's like a new rom-com that is called One Night Only. And I guess the trailer describes it. It's like people can only do like the panky panky for one day a year. And it's starring Callum Turner and Monica Barbero. And I don't know, man. This looks like a silly thing. I mean, it is a comedy, so it's not going to be a pretty serious movie, but we'll see what happens with this one. We also got some stuff for Violent Night 2 with like them introducing the Kristen Bell as Mrs. Claus in this movie, and also they did release the trailer, and this is what the trailer says. The trailer catches audience up on this cynical version of Santa Claus, David Harbour, and his mission to kill those on the naughty list. The sequel turns that concept on its head, as Santa himself makes the naughty list since he has last touch with the meaning of Christmas. Santa tries to reconnect with his festive roots by playing Santa at the local mall, but when assassins come to destroy the mall and take revenge on Santa, he teams up with the mall workers. In one fight, they stuff a goon into the food court oven. This looks interesting and fun. I'm in. We also got some stuff for Robert Eggers' new movie, Werewulf. And they showed the trailer there, and it was like presented by in a 4:3 boxy aspect ratio, which is pretty cool. And this is what the trailer had to say. They say this: Edgar's historical gothic aesthetic is on full display as we are shown images of frail, grimy Townsend with torches and meticulous rendition of the medieval English countryside. William Dafoe is narrating the legend of the werewolf, a beast that everyone in town fears. We see a brief images of William Dafoe's character and Lily Rose Depp's character as well, both looking dirty and almost maniacal. They also said that the real meat of the trailer starts as we see Aaron Taylor Johnson's character staring at a full moon while he stands in the shed. And then there's a long, wide shot of Aaron Taylor Johnson as his body starts spamming, intercut by some footage of other characters. His character soaked in blood and the townsfolk being terrorized in vintage font. The title card and its Christmas release date flash. Its classic Edgar imagery once again release it for a moody and spooky option for the holidays. So that's kind of cool too, especially, this movie is coming out on Christmas, which I feel like I'm realizing there is a lot of movies released on Christmas. I don't know if that's just me. And like, if you guys know, his last movie, Nosferatu, was releasing on Christmas, and it was a pretty great movie. So I'm very interested about how this movie will be. It seems interesting. For the Minions and Monsters animated movie, they did show a couple of scenes and footage from like the movie. They showed two. The first scene they showed is like it opens up in a classic Western chase where the Minions are trying to follow a bandit on a horse with a money bag. The Minions hijack a train, run into town, where the corner bandit, who is scared and confused by their hijinks. And then it is also revealed that the Minions accidentally hijacked a movie set, and the director was very frustrated with that. The second scene talks about how the studio head has fallen in love with the screen presence of the Minions, so they are invited to the studio to shoot a combat scene against Vikings. The Minions will eventually become movie stars and create a film of their own titled Minions and Monsters. Sure. And then we got the upcoming Steven Spielberg movie, Disclosure Days, and they did show some footage about it. And there's a lot of stuff they also talked about, which I'm very interested in. It has me more excited. So this is what the footage says, first of all. So it starts off with a clip of Emily Blunt entering the news station and speaking an alien language, as seen in the first teaser. When then cut to Josh O'Connor showing his partner what appears to be a video extraterrestrial bodies. Emily Blunt knows she needs to seek out Josh O'Connor's character, who, like her, understands the alien languages as some sort of like mathematical equation. And then there's like a twitchy, paranoid, slick vibe throughout. And then they also talk about how there's like exciting car crash scenes like through a house. And then Josh O'Connor's character is trying to like escape the government forces. We see like the animal creatures are like transforming and all of that. And then they say it looks like Colin Firth seems to be the villain, as he is like the government, while Coleman Domingo is a doctor who thinks disclosure is the way to go. And then we see, apparently, like they say that Emily Blunt and Josh O'Connor's characters, they seem to have a childhood connection, perhaps from being abducted together or even from being aliens themselves. And then the footage ends with Emily Blunt on the table where a deer transforms into a full gray alien. So overall, like some of this footage, it's really interesting. And I'm very curious about it. And you know what's something that got me even more excited that they said? Steven Spielberg said none of the third act has been marketed, which is kind of crazy. And that has me excited because I have no clue about what's going to be the third act. And I just can't wait to see like what it's going to look like, or like what's the third act like. Like I love that they're not showing anything for the third act of this movie. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the Odyssey, which is literally one of my most anticipated movies of like this year. I'm very excited. And they showed 5 minutes of footage for the Odyssey. So let's talk about what they showed. So they talked about how the footage is pretty much like similar to like the 5 minute like clip we saw from the Odyssey if you watch Avatar Fire and Ash on the IMAX. But they were saying like the main difference here was like the opening showed that like Odysseus, like Matt Damon's character, was washed up on the beach where he's greeted by the goddess Calypso, Charlie Theron, who asked him about his past, which he cannot remember. And then we also see more scenes of John Bertho's Menelaus inviting Tom Holland's Telekmos Machos. I'm sorry if I mispronounced these names. Look, I'm sorry. To sit with him at a large feast to recall the story of the Trojan horse. And then there was also a brief glimpse of like a giant hand of the Cyclops, like right as he grabs one of Odysseus' troops and eats him off screen. And then we just hear this poor man screaming in pain, and Cyclops eats him into pieces, which is okay, kind of crazy. And then there's also like a glimpse of Robert Pattinson yelling crazily in the feast. So that's pretty much it. I mean, but overall, I was hearing a lot of stuff like people were praising it and like it was sound pretty good. And I'm very excited for this movie. This has been one of my most anticipated movies, and this is Christopher Nolan we're talking about. So overall, there was some pretty cool stuff for Universal. It wasn't a lot compared to like Sony and Warner Bros. Like the projects they released, but there were some pretty good. So overall, there wasn't a lot like of stuff Universal released like compared to like Sony and Warner Bros. But there was a lot of pretty cool stuff and footage, which has me very excited. So, anyways, guys, let me know in the comments section which movies or projects are you excited or interested to see. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.